Hello guys and gals. This is going to be another album review. I'm going to be hopefully turning a few of these out here over the next week or so. What do we got here? We got a band that I had never heard of before, but I saw them on Angry Metal Guy. They're called, I hope I get this right, Soliloquium. I think they're from Sweden. The album is called Contemplations. This was billed as like sad boy music, which to me means it's like funeral doom, melodic doom, some type of doom metal band, and that's exactly what this is. So I wouldn't call it sad per se. The music isn't particularly sad, but it definitely draws upon some major bands in that category, most notably Rapture and Swallow the Sun. So the album is pretty good. It's not great by any means, and it's not average. It's somewhere in the middle. I think this band could actually do pretty well to get away from some of these long, drawn-out acoustic passages in the music. Every time those would extend too long, it felt like, man, what are they waiting for? It's this music. The heavier sections are what really draw me to the music. So I just wish they would maybe stop having such a 50-50 split between those two, and maybe have it be 75% heavy, 25% acoustic clean, It is what it is. I mean, they also sound like they aren't as tight as they could be in certain areas. It sounds almost like at certain spots the guitar was lagging behind the drums significantly, or maybe the drums would just stop suddenly, like the drummer didn't know what to do, and there'd be this awkward pause. And silence in a track isn't bad, but the way they did it, it seemed almost like all of the instruments weren't completely in sync the entire time, and that's something I think that they can definitely clean up. The production was also very questionable in certain places, especially with the band alternating so much between these cleaner acoustic sections and the more heavier sections. There were a lot of instances where it sounded as if the clean acoustic guitar was actually louder than the heavy distorted sections, the heavy distorted guitar. So you'd have this real open, clean acoustic section, and the acoustic guitar would be super loud, and then it would switch over, and it seemed like the mix would almost dim down in volume, and I didn't really understand that. I mean, if I was seeing this band live, I would definitely expect the opposite to be true. So maybe that's something that they can look at when it comes to the production side of things, because I think that's just a matter of adjusting the volume on the different sections in the music. So the vocalist, his growl is interesting. It's not bad per se, but I think he could work on it a little bit, make it a little fuller, a little deeper, a little more all-encompassing. When you're talking about melodic doom or just doom in general, your growl has got to be on point. His sounded a little bit weak, like he was stretching a little bit to really get it out. So yeah, I wasn't too much of a fan of that. And they did have a singer as well, a clean singer, and he was average at best, or above average at best, I should say. Nothing too crazy cool or anything, and he wasn't like he was off key or anything, but it did sound like that aspect of the music could be improved as well. Just maybe smooth out his voice a little bit, or find somebody who can really hit those notes spot on and stick those landings, instead of having this kind of... And I had the same criticism on the Swallow the Sun Songs from the North album that I reacted to on this channel. It just, if you're going to have clean vocals, there needs to be something unique, interesting, special, or just exceptional about them. Don't just throw some cleans in there and have them be average, because it's going to stick out on the album. It's going to be super noticeable. So the riff writing on this album was actually pretty good. The first song, Chains, is really good. Catharsis, the second song, is probably the best song on the whole album. In Effect and Unfilling Prophecy were also very good. The second half of Streetlights I actually really liked. Overall, I think they did a pretty good job with the songwriting. Again, it's a very minimalistic, straightforward doom album. So not a lot of additional instrumentation, not a lot of strange changes in the music or odd time signatures or patterns or any of that stuff. This is a pretty, lock, stock, barrel, like Doom album. It's not going to be, this is a pretty conventional listen, so just be prepared for that. If you're looking for something a little bit more adventurous, maybe check out that Altars of Grief, Woods of Ypres, I think Swallow the Sun, stuff like that is a little bit more adventurous than this. So these guys, I have to say, they sound like they have some talent, but they also sound like they're maybe 1 or 2 albums away from delivering us their best album, or maybe something truly special that you could listen to and say, dude, that's one of the contenders, for being one of the top albums of the year right there. It sounds like they're a couple of albums away from that. This album in particular, to me, sounded a lot like batting practice. It sounded like a band that's still trying to discover what makes them special, what makes them unique, their signature sound. They're kind of working out the kinks, and that's what this album sounded like. So regardless, I'm going to talk about 2 of the songs that I thought were good on this album. The first being, of course, I already mentioned Catharsis, the second track. The best riff of the whole album is the opening riff on this song. So badass. It's something that Rapture or Swallow the Sun would have written but didn't. It's one of those where you're like, man, why didn't they think of this? Like, this is so good. It's doomy, melodic. Then they follow it up with some real icy, chilly acoustic guitar notes, very organic sounding. The clean vocals are just barely holding on. Not a lot of power in those vocals, just enough to get the job done, and that's what I was talking about earlier. It's like, if you're going to have clean vocals, they need to be powerful. They can't be kind of weak and just like sound like they're just barely holding on to the notes. It's like that's going to come through on the album and stick out. So definitely watch that. This song overall is just a headbanger, man. This song is so much fun. The drums did a great job on this song, changing tempos, changing up patterns. There were a few different patterns that he was playing around with. Again, they alternated between the heavier and the softer sections on this song. You can definitely tell that this band is going for the melodic doom shtick. I mean, there's no confusion. There's no second guessing what this band is doing. There's a great riff, though, to carry out the end of the song. Super heavy, discordant dissonance. That's exactly what you want. Overall, just a great song. It's probably the best on the album. And I get to the end of this thing. It's only about 5 minutes, and I think, man, I wish this song would never end. But it is what it is. It's kind of sad when you reach the second track on the album and you're like, man, this is the best song. But that's kind of what happened on this album. I think that in the future they can reach a level, perhaps, if they come back and they reorder a few things, they rework a few things, tidy some things up. I think they could reach a level where they could stay at this level of consistency throughout the entire album. But that remains to be seen. The next song I wanted to talk about was called Unfilling Prophecy, and that was song 5 on the album. It's got a cool little alarm clock sound at the beginning of the track. This is a very classic doom metal sound after a couple of tracks that were a lot softer. A great melodic guitar, similar to what you'd hear on a Rapture album. The guys' growls do sound like they evolved in a gravel pit a little bit. They just got this real rocky, gravelly kind of sound, but the point is they're not very full. Like, it doesn't sound like they've got a lot of body to them, and I'm hoping that he uses his diaphragm a bit more and really practices pushing that air out so we can get something that's a lot fuller, better, just a little bit bassier, perhaps a little bit more, a little bit lower in the registry, something to really pack a punch. The pretty simple riffage on this thing. They do a great job setting the mood of the track with the acoustic guitar. You find that on so many of these tracks. They'll have the heavier sections, but then the acoustic sections will come in and kind of just set kind of a mood or an ambiance that really takes hold of the track and kind of carries it all the way through to the end. So very cool. Of course, they do return to some of the more heavy riffage on this track, but it seems pretty simple and straightforward. A lot of these riffs, I don't think, they're passable for what they are, but I think they could have spent a little bit more time just making some of these riffs a little bit more memorable, creative, you know. But it is what it is. I mean, this would pass on a Swallow the Sun album, this song. There were some awkward pauses near the end of the song, and then after those pauses, a transition to the acoustic section of the song that mirrored the heavier section they were playing earlier. So they had a heavy section earlier in the song. They played the same riff on the acoustic guitar to near the end of the song, and it sounded pretty cool. Again, this band is very dynamic. I mean, they have the ability to write, you know, this really heavy, kind of doomy, dissonant guitar-driven stuff, and then also at the same time, they can kind of smooth everything over and cool you off with some really nice atmospheric, melodic, clean stuff too. So that's really great. This is basically a straightforward song. There's only about 5 or 6 riffs in this song, but I still think it's one of the best songs on the album, and mainly because of the songwriting. I love, again, the way they oscillate back and forth between the heavy and the clean. So, but I think I've repeated myself enough. You guys get the picture with this album. If you like Swallow the Sun, if you like Rapture, Slumber, Woods of Ypres, if you like the melodic doom stuff, then you're probably going to like this. I mean, this is not, for what it is, I mean, this is a fairly good example of that style of music being pulled off. It's just, for me, at the end of the day, I think this band has room to grow and improve, and I think with their next couple of releases, we'll get to see a band that's playing a lot tighter, that's being a little bit more ambitious with the songwriting and the riff writing, and maybe who's taken some time to work on their vocals a little bit, work on the cleans and on the growls. And maybe it wouldn't hurt either if they added a touch of exotic instrumentation either on this thing. So they don't have to get a synthesizer or anything, but you know, a little bit of piano here, maybe violin or keyboard, or you know, if they wanted to add, like Woods of Ypres in that album I reviewed, they had cello worked in there, piano, oboe. That's pretty cool. I mean, it adds another layer to the music. I think this band could benefit from some additional ideas like that being thrown into their music. So, but we'll see. All in all, I thought it was a decent album. I thought it was pretty good. Again, not great, not average, somewhere in the middle. But that's it for the video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, if you dug the video, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe below. Let me know what you'd like to see me review and react to in the future. I hope you guys are having a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This is Metal Album Reactions, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.